Welcome to the 217 Recovery Podcast.
If you don't make mistakes, you won't learn.
With your host, Corey Winfield.
And that goes to uneducated people. You know, and I'm not calling them dumb, I'm saying they're uneducated about addiction and how it works. And I was too. You know, back in the day, I was a drunk and uneducated. Going, oh, look at that guy. Ugh. I was uneducated. But the more we can educate people, and I think it starts with the youth, the more we educate the youth and get them like understanding, like, look, this is what it is, this is how it works.
Got your ass.
It is the 5th of September, 2024. My name's Corey Winfield. This is the 217 Recovery Podcast, and I have a special guest joining me today, Robert Pardon. And Robert, we don't have to live miserable.
Long past.
Yes. I figured it's been, I don't even know, a couple of years probably.
A couple of years, yeah. I was telling my friend Michelle that it's been a couple of years since I've been on your show, and it's really good to chat with you. So much has happened. I mean, I have to turn down just opportunity after opportunity because it just creates a hecticness in my schedule. And so I'm very particular on the spots that I choose. I try to keep busy with my podcast, do some speaking out of state, you know, and I'm involved with this organization. See, and if I want to swim in the deep end of the pool, they're called Came to Believe, which is an organization that was founded by Clarence Snyder, who was one of the sponsees of Dr. Bob Smith. And so Clarence at one time was the longest sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And back in 1966, he wrote a companion book called Came to Believe, which incorporates the 12 steps of recovery as they're written on the wall as the foundation. But it's a faith-based organization similar to Celebrate Recovery or Reformers Unanimous or a church-based program. However, those programs, which I shy away from, put the Bible before the 12 steps. In other words, they feel you need salvation and salvation will lead to recovery. Well, I call that bullshit. You know, sobriety leads to everything. Yeah. You know, and you can be a person based on your particular spiritual path. You can be a person, you know, on your way to nirvana or heaven or whatever you're going to call it, and you're drunk. What have you done? You know, you've denied every human on the planet to secure an earth, a heavenly position, and I call that selfish and self-centeredness. And so this organization, I'm starting to get involved with them, and they're sending me they're actually signed an agreement with Salvation Army to be in 120 of their ARCs across the country to develop a program of treatment and recovery. And so it's very interesting to see how this thing unfolds.
Yeah, and that's interesting, the Salvation Army, because what I know of the Salvation Army, at least here in Michigan, you go there and you fold clothes, and then you go to an AA meeting. Hey, yeah. You know, it's better than sleeping in the woods. It's better than sleeping in a ditch, but they pay them like 25 cents an hour. I mean, I don't know. This is what I've heard, and maybe this has changed, but the last time we've like taken somebody to Salvation Army, I'm using air quotes here, to treatment, there wasn't really treatment. You know, it was more like a homeless thing that they just, hey, fold these clothes, give you something to do, we'll feed you, hit an AA meeting.
Yeah. There's a 9-month program. So, and they're a Christ-centered organization who knows nothing about recovery.
Yeah. And,
you know, and so they're graduating these people at 3, 6, and 9 months, sending them back on the street, but they have no 12-step foundation. There's nothing to them, and they're going to relapse. I mean, that's what people like you and me do, you know, without a firm foundation of what the 12 steps do in terms of how they allow us to reclaim and revolutionize and reinvent ourselves as an individual. You know, what have you done? You know, you haven't done anything.
I was listening.
You know, you might get them closer to God in a way, but if you're not getting them closer to their wife, to their children, to their job, to their mom, their dad, their sister, what have you done? You know?
Yeah, and that's like saying, oh, if you're a Christian, then you won't be you won't have a problem. You know, if you're a Muslim, you won't have a problem because you'll have some kind of religion, you'll have some kind of thing, and that's not the case. And I was listening to the Rico 12 podcast that you
my
did.
buddy Justin,
Yeah, that's a cool thing that you guys got going on there, the Ask It Basket, and they were talking about the atheist. It was like, hey, I don't believe in God, and my answer was kind of very similar to yours because my wife and I were like driving. Well, she was actually writing, I was driving, and my thing was, well, how many more excuses do you got in there? You know, like, because you can have excuse, well, I don't believe in God, so I'm not going to go to AA. Like pump the brakes. There's 50,000 different ways you can recover. I use the podcast. You know, like there's different ways you can do it, but like if that's what you're throwing out as excuses already, just stop. You know, because first, like you said, you know, just stop. Like let's just get clean, and you can worry about who you believe in and all that stuff later. You know, and trust me that you know I believe in a God. It might not be the same as yours, but you know, like it doesn't matter. You know, when you're talking about recovery and living in a life in recovery, and it like you guys mentioned too, it's different. You know, than being abstinent, than being I'm sober today. You know, like I tried that. I just didn't drink for a while.
Yeah. You know what? Work. And I never did more meth until I was in the choir loft at Covina First Baptist Church, man. That's when I really got into meth and smoking crack. I mean, just, you know, I'd be hitting a pipe at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning and be in the choir loft by 9, you know, and just, I remember borrowing the choir director's car and I almost drove it off a cliff. I was so drunk I threw up in the car.
Oh.
I don't think he ever loaned that car again. And I was a good choir member. I was a really good Baptist, you know, on my way to hell drunk.
Oh man. But
you know, and I tell people all the time, you know, I don't care who you're hiring. One of my sponsees has a higher power who is a Greek goddess called Gaius, and she's the goddess of something. I don't know. All I know is this dude is happy, joyous, and free. I don't know anything about his higher power, and I could care less. I just care that he's happy, joyous, and free. That's all I care about. If he's happy, joyous, and free, you know, your higher power can be anything but anything except a doorknob or a coffee cup, and I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead.
You don't believe in the doorknob, huh?
Oh, hell no. I don't believe in anything that requires me to give it purpose. Yeah, the doorknob only works when I work the doorknob. Most of the time, God's working me. I'm not working God.
Yeah. You just got to shut up and get out of the way sometimes. And I was explaining to this guy the other day, he came in and we have these 217 recovery coins that we give out, and it has our website on the back and it has fun and recovery, you know, to kind of remind people like, look, if you're down, pull out that coin and go to our website, listen to a podcast, watch one of our stupid videos, you know, like just get a laugh, you know, just break that, anything to break that like desire to go use or whatever. And the guy was like, well, I don't need a coin. I only have 2 weeks. And I was like, I had 2 weeks once. I had 2 weeks a lot of times actually, but the last time I had 2 weeks was back in 2018, you know, and I just put some more behind it, you know, but I was like, dude, like seriously, like, you know, and I kind of went through the whole process of it all. And it is a process, you know, you can't just wake up one day and be like, I'm an addict and I'm just not going to do it anymore. Yeah. I mean, maybe you can. It
doesn't work that way.
It just didn't work that way for me. I mean, maybe there's a guy or two out there that did work for, but it is a process. It is, at least for me, because I wanted to try it my way, every little freaking way I could, until finally I just threw my hands up and said, that's enough. Yeah. I'll just listen to everybody else and do it a different way, because having a plan that in 5 years I'll get a radio gig in California, nobody will know, and I'll be able to drink again. Yeah. That's a lie. I'm telling myself a lie, you know, and it's my brain telling me that. You know, my soul wants this new life. My soul wants this whole creation, you know, I want a family, I want a wife, I want a kid, I want all that stuff. But my brain's telling me, nah, this is what you need to do.
That's the ego. Yeah. You know what? You know what the ego's number one purpose is? Are you ready? The ego's number one purpose and function is to convince me it doesn't exist. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yeah. My ego says, I'm not here. I'm not real. By the way, I think you're the greatest person on the planet. I say, I agree. You know, I agree with something that his purpose is to convince me it's not real and to convince me that I'm better than I really am. You know,
No flaws.
I've been sober 14,013 days. I think that's it. I think that's the number. And you know, the difference between me and the newcomer is I've been doing it longer. You know, there's no extra information that I get. You know, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was talking about 14,013 days. And she was saying, gosh, you know so much. And I said, well, I know so much because I've read it over and over and over and over again, you know. And that's what we do, just repetition. There's only 12 steps in the program, you know, and steps 1, 2, 3 are surrender steps, 4 through 9 are recovery steps, and 10, 11, and 12 are continuation steps. And when we understand that, then we can, you know, get to a place that's really not a place, but a journey. And I, you know, I never want to be cured. I never, could you imagine, Corey, waking up tomorrow and realizing we're done? There's not a drink in the world. There's not a feeling in the world that could be better than the feeling I'll get tomorrow when I realize I've been given another day to be a better version of me. I mean, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And the world needs people like us. And that's not my ego. I'm just saying, like, people can deliver this message of it can happen, and proof that good things are happening still in our lives. You know, like that's what I mean. Like, we need to carry that message. And there are people out there that say, you know, I was told when I started the podcast and I was in Sober Living, we went to this meeting in Charlevoix, and the guy was all irritated that was running the meeting because one of his recoveries was in the newspaper talking about, how he was sober for a year or something. Maybe it was 2 years, whatever. Well, then he went out and relapsed. And so he came in and he was so pissed. And he's like, you know what? If you don't have 5 years, you need to just shut your mouth. And he looked right at me, you know, I mean, the other guys that started this podcast, and I'm like, is he talking to us? Like, I can't work that way. Like, I have to put it out there that I'm in recovery. And when I did, because when on the radio, like, I would hide it. You know, I was the rock jock, man. We're supposed to be out partying, doing coke, smoking weed, getting drunk. My studio is supposed to smell like beer, you know? And so to be like, hey, I have a drinking problem, you know, I couldn't really do that. And then I'm like, I'll lose my job, and I'm in a program director role. I'm in 2 different markets. Like, I really can't do that. I was afraid. And when I started the podcast, Robert, it was so freeing. It was like kicking the doors off. And I was like, I'm not hiding it anymore. You know, like, boom, I'm in recovery. You know, a lot of people will say, I'm an alcoholic. And okay, call yourself whatever you want. To me, that's a negative term. And I don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm a piece of shit today. I'm going to absolutely do nothing. No, I wake up and I'm like, all right, cool. I might take a shit, but, you know, then I'll take a shower. I'll get to work. And it'll be on my list of things that I'm going to accomplish today, because I'm going to get some stuff done. I'm going to help some people today. Yeah. And to never know who's walking through our doors each day is kind of interesting. And what kind of things you're going to hear, or what just simple things you could say that they're going to come back in 2 years and be like, man, when you told me that, you know, I'm like, oh, really? Just about the jelly jar? You know, like, okay, like, all right. But that's the beauty of it, man. And it's so amazing. And since we last talked, I think I was married when we talked last time.
Yes.
But I had a baby boy a few months ago.
Congrats.
In May. Little son, and we thought that was not going to happen. You know, we're just like, okay, well, if it happens, it happens, and boom, here you go, cute little boy. He's healthy. He's got the dimples like his daddy. You know, he's gonna be a little charmer. Women are always like, oh my gosh, his eyelashes are so long. I'm like, yeah, it's like his daddy.
That's Pops. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's just like all these blessings just keep coming, and to be able to open a recovery community center, you know, is amazing. Our organization, 217 Recovery, is a recovery community organization through Faces and Voices of Recovery, and we get to employ people in recovery. We have 5 employees, and that may not sound like a lot, but it is when you're paying taxes on them. Oh my God,
there it is. Yeah,
tell you that. Didn't know any of that stuff was happening, but yeah. So to be able to employ these people, whether I pay taxes on them or not, which we do. It is just an amazing thing. One of our guys I met at a vape shop, and he worked there, and I come in there wearing my 217 Recovery Podcast sweatshirt, and I'd seen him before, but it was like the third time I went in there, and I was debating on buying a new vape, and I was explaining to him, well, my wife did just get her hair done again, like, I mean, she's spending money on herself. I can spend money to, kill myself with the vaping, I guess. And so I got the new vape, and I was like, well, but I do want to save up for a new camera because we're starting to film a lot more things. And he's like, what do you do? What do you film? And I told him, I was like, we film people telling their recovery stories. And he just kind of looked at me and had this hesitant look on his face. And then he said, yeah, I'm in recovery too. And I said, well, good for you, and we started this conversation about being in recovery. And I told him that I spoke at a treatment center every week. And he said, man, that would be awesome. Do you think I could come with you? That's absolutely, man. So I checked with the treatment center. They said, yeah, no problem. So I brought him along with me, and he just liked it a lot. And then I said, hey, we're opening this recovery center. Have you ever thought about becoming a recovery coach? And he was like, nah, I haven't really. I was like, well, here's what we would pay. I know that's probably more than what you're making at the vape store, but you can actually have a career here. And he turned me down. Said, nah, I'm cool at the vape store. I'm like, okay. And then the next day he comes knocking on the door. We had to open it up for him. He's like, hey man, I'm so sorry. I do want that job. That was so stupid of me to turn you down, And so now he works here. And since then he's become a recovery coach. He's certified with the state. He's now one of our drivers that take people to and from treatment, which is very crucial when you use a recovery coach to do that. It's huge. And he has learned how to use Photoshop. He has his own podcast now. He's amazing at making these awesome flyers that we post around town. I mean, his skill set has went through the roof, and he's just scratching the surface.
That's crazy.
And he posted a blog. He's a good blog writer about how his life has changed, and for the first time ever, he has a career. Wow. And to make this more than just, oh yeah, I'm in recovery. No, this is a lifestyle, and he's embracing it. He's going on dates with women who have jobs, like, I mean, it's
and who bathe.
Yeah, he has standards. He says no to some women, and it's just that self-confidence. It's just this life, of being joyous and being thankful. And it's just such an amazing thing to be in the position that I'm in, to be able to watch these people grow and to be able to offer these people work and careers. It's just something that's just amazing, Robert. I'll tell you. So
that's a great story, and we never know. These chance encounters are only a chance to us. There are no accidents in God's economy, and every opportunity. If one of my college professors, Dr. Nessman, taught me one of the most valuable lessons we could ever learn, and maybe you've heard a version of it. He talked to me and he told me there was something called the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is a third of the people are going to think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. A third of the people really could care less. And a third of the people can't wait for me to shut up. He said, but they'll all look the same. So the person who can't wait for you to shut up is going to look like the person who thinks you hung the moon. And they're going to seem real attached, real attentive, and they're going to think you're full of crap the whole way through. So therefore, you don't know who these thirds are. Therefore, when you talk to everyone as if they were in the top third, many become in the top third even without their permission. And I've tried to engage when we go into treatment centers, and that, some people could care less. Some people are there for just 3 hots and a cot. Some are there because it beats 5 years in federal prison. I mean, there's a number of reasons. Yeah. CPS says if you don't go, you're not going to get the kids back. Everyone jumps through that particular coercion hoop for a different reason. But when you talk to them as if they have potential, as if they have power, as if they have another way of living, then they can think, why is this person talking to me? I don't care. And yet you don't care that they don't care. You're just there to share your experience, strength, and hope. that's all we have to do, according to step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles on all our affairs. We don't have to convince them of anything. We just have to try to carry our message. And our message is powerful. It's real. It's authentic. It's filled with compassion. It's filled with love. It's filled with remorse. It's filled with forgiveness. It's filled with the resurrected life, you know. And when we talk in those terms, people who wouldn't listen normally, now we have their attention and they think, I want what that person has. I'm actually willing. I'm so tired of living this other life. I'm willing to entertain what they're saying. And when that happens, magic occurs, man. And there's, bro, there's nothing like it.
And I wish I could bottle it and just give it to everybody. But then I would try to give people too much, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But no, that's what I told the guy who said he had 2 weeks. And I was like, it's this magical thing and it just flips. And I don't know when it's going to flip for you, but it will. Just give it some time. But
I was in a treatment center yesterday, Brighton, me and my friend Michelle. You'll have to have her on the show. She's amazing. I take her everywhere with me because she just lends so much credibility to my recovery. Anyway, I was in this treatment center and at the end of this, my 90 minutes with them, this girl came up and said, could I talk to you? And I said, sure, I've got a few minutes. And so she had 15 days sober. And she was worried about how she was. And I said to her, I said, I have 14,011 days. And I said, how many days do you have? And she says, 15 days. And I said, and how many of those days have you wanted to use? And she said, 15 of them. And I said, I can't remember the last time I wanted to use. Who do you think is more powerful in this room, you or me? And she thought about it and said, me? And I said, exactly. You've exhibited more power in the last 15 days of saying no to something your mind was saying yes to, that you have to have more power than me because you've been saying no when I just don't have a desire. And then I told her, I said, do I know you in the present or do I know you by your past? And she said, well, you don't know my past, so you know me in the present. And I said, exactly. What would you think of me if I found out everything of your past and then used it against you in your present? And she said, I wouldn't like you. I said, okay. Why doesn't that apply to you? And she just left this room. I would imagine she woke up today with day 16.
Yeah.
When we can transfer that magic, when we can allow, because in reality, how many people that you meet today will you know from yesterday? All you know is today. And that's really powerful. Evidence, they used to say to me, if you talk to me the way I talk to me, I would tell you to get out of my life. And that's true. People need to see what they're doing, not what they've done. Because when we judge ourselves by who we were, we judge ourselves as a bad person. Mm-hmm. And we're actually sick people trying to get well, who've done some bad things. But we did bad things not because we were bad. We did bad things because we were sick. And the sooner we can get our head around that, the closer we are to that position of recovery.
You're trying to dig up the past because you nailed it, because you can't change the past, and don't judge me on it. And when you can get to that point of your life or your recovery journey where you can forgive yourself for the past, and you can move forward and build a new life, it can be exciting. That's exactly what I did. Yeah. I decided I'm not going to go back to radio. I'm going to start a nonprofit because why not? That's what people do. And, I want to help people. I knew that even from being in radio. My biggest things that I'll tell people from radio isn't that I met Billy Gibbons or whoever. It's not that I did this or that. we did a food drive in Fort Smith, Arkansas, the first year, and I was like, all right, let's do this. The food bank came to us and they said, well, will you help us? I said, sure. So we got with this garbage company or something. They gave us all these trash bins that we put in the stores, and we were on the radio, 4 different stations telling people, drop off food, cans of food. And grocery stores said they were going to put little labels and, oh man, this is great. Go to collect the food. We didn't have shit. We had nothing. And the guys that worked at the other stations were like, all right, well, that sucked. Well, next year came around and the food bank guys came to talk to me and they're like, let's do this again. I said, yeah, let's have a different strategy. And he's like, well, to tell you the truth, Corey, dropping off cans of food, it's kind of a pain in the ass because then we got to pay somebody to come and sort it. Half of it we have to throw away because it's expired. It's just crap that people are just getting out of their cupboards. And he's like, if you give us money, it helps. Every $12.50 we can feed a family of 4 with. I thought, okay. So I got with the movie theater and Hunger Games or 2 or whatever was coming out. And I was like, look, give us all these movie tickets. People will go there. They'll buy your popcorn, which you want anyway. And for $12.50, which was actually cheaper than what you would have went to the movies and bought 2 tickets for,
sure.
You feed a family of 4. So, man, we raised enough to feed 20,000 people. And It was insane. We went from nothing. And my coworkers didn't want to even try it. They're like, we failed at it. And I'm like, no. We failed how we did it. We're doing it again this year. And then the next year we did it again. And that's what I loved, and I was telling that story when I was in the psych ward to this guy. And he's like, man, he's like, you just lit up when you told that story. And I was like, well, it's because I'm proud of it, and like we helped so many people. And that's why I knew I had that in me. And first when I thought, oh, okay, I'll do this recovery thing. I'll get clean and I'll go back to school and I'll be a drug counselor. And I didn't want to be a drug counselor. I don't want to sit in a room with one person, and I can't share my experience with them either. If you're a therapist, you're sitting there, you just have to listen and say, did you think that calling the cop a dick was going to get you out of that ticket? You got to make them think of that, like, whoa, was that a good idea? Probably not, but I didn't want to do that. So I had a foot in and a foot out and I was stuck. But when I went to treatment that last time and I was like, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to make it to a nonprofit and we're going to help people. How? I have no idea. But God put this in my head for a reason. Don't know why. I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to run with it. Don't know what I'm doing, which can be scary for people. But having that faith and just trusting, like, this is better than what I was doing before. And I'm actually working towards something. If I just went back in the radio, I'll just slide right back in the same old life. You have to change. And I don't know if you can see it behind me up here is actually lyrics from a Blind Melon song. When life is hard, you have to change. Yeah. You have to. And for me, it was a change that I needed to make. And now to just kind of offer that for other people is just amazing. But, to not give up on yourself, not judge your past, is a tough one. It took me a while. I'm like, oh, but I called the police on my mom. Like all this stupid stuff that I had done. I called my sister a horrible mother. Can't take it back. I remember it. And the only thing I can do today is that living amends. I can show my mom, I can show my sister, I can show my whole family that, yeah, I am sorry. And I did change my ways, so I'll never act like that again. And my mom will tell you probably different because sometimes I'd like to put her on timeout. But hey, just kidding, Mom, sort of.
There's so much to be said for making that living amends, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. I mean, we can go to people. Most of the people we say we're sorry to just want to see us live a different life. The majority of them, certainly in my life, and I was with my oldest daughters, the 2 daughters I walked out on over this last weekend, and then we sat and we chatted. My oldest daughter, Kathleen, and I had a chance to sit down and just talk, and I mainly talked to her, and I said, of everyone I've ever sorry for, you're the only true regret. You and your sister are the only real regrets that I carry with me today. And she looked at me and she said, Dad, you don't have anything to worry about. Just stay clean, stay sober, do you. And I know she felt that way, but every now and then to hear that is really good, especially When you've been sober as long as me, you just want to make sure you're still making a difference. And I wasn't that much of a difference to her because I left them when they were young. But man, I'm a great example as a grandfather, how to make good choices and how to turn their life around. And I'm an example to to her children that I wasn't to her. And, there's always that living amends, that I like that phrase a lot.
Yeah, because those people don't want to hear sorry anymore. I got to the point where I couldn't even look my mom in the eye and say, sorry, never do it again, and that shame of it. Like, oh, I just caused all this pain and stuff for everybody else. And oh my gosh, it's horrible. And to be at a point, and I was telling this to the guy that was in here the other day, to be at a point where I thought, no, I'm 37. I've lived a pretty good life. I can die now. to think, to go back and go, oh my God, but that's what alcohol did to my brain. It convinced me that, yeah, you lived a pretty good life. You did some pretty cool things. You check out now. That's cool. You lived a full life. Didn't even know what love was, didn't know what a family was, to just experience this is just so amazing, man. And it's truly a blessing. And I thank God every day. The way I prayed before was, God, let me figure this out. And he let me figure it out. Yeah. I had to go through all those hard times to be where I'm at today. If I didn't go to jail, I wouldn't know anything about jail.
Yeah.
If I didn't go back to jail, I wouldn't have been sent up to northern Michigan, to get away from where I grew up in southwest Michigan, where there was nothing there for me, and to be able to have that fresh start. Some people, I've seen them leave treatment. Like this one couple, they hooked up in treatment and they're like, we're going to move to Florida. I said, okay, I can tell you how that's going to work out. Oh, don't judge us. You don't know. We're the exception. All right. 2-3 weeks later, I get a Facebook message. Well, you were right. He kicked me out. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, because you start using again? Well, that's not the point. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I could, all right. And there's some people who just can't imagine, and I was this way too, can't imagine a life without using some kind of drug. And I thought I'd figured it out. I was in the crappiest treatment center that's on the earth. And it's when it hit me, Robert, I'm a genius. My ego came into play here. Why didn't I figure this out sooner? I don't know. I'm just going to smoke weed. That's what I'll do. And I went up to one of the techs. I was like, hey, man, I don't even need to be here anymore. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, man, I figured it out. I'm just going to smoke weed. I don't like mixing alcohol and weed. I'll just smoke weed, then I won't drink. He said, you can't substitute. That's substituting. You're substituting one for... Yeah. Man, no, I got this. So I get out, I get this bag of weed, and the bag of weed now is not the bag of weed when I was smoking weed when I was 17, 18. Not saying... Yeah. I was like, I couldn't even get off the couch. I was like, what is going on? I was like, this is stupid. And then I called a buddy and was like, hey, bring me a fifth and I'll trade you this weed. It lasted a day, Robert. Like that, it just doesn't work. And I was like, damn, that guy was right. And then I had to go back treatment again or blah, blah, blah. But some people still hold on to this thing of like, I have to have something. And this one lady was telling me like, oh, I'm going to smoke weed till the rest of my life. And I was like, look, for me, I can't do it. If there's a 1% chance, a 0.5%, 0.0000001% chance, I'm not going to do it. Because if there's that 1%, that 0.00001% that'll lead me to alcohol again, not going to do it. It's not worth it. And they're like, yeah, but I need it for my back, or I need it because work is stressful. I'm like, do you? Have you? What are you working on? What are you really working on? Because that was something that I said too, being in radio. Oh, it's so stressful. Like I have to come home and I have to just get shit-faced drunk. What? That doesn't make sense. And how is that helping anything? Well, it helps me unwind. What? No, it doesn't. It makes you shake. Like that's why you're sick and dry heaving in the morning. Like that's what it's doing. It's not helping you. But it's tough to get caught up in that though, and then just think, well, I need it for this, I need it for that. It's like, no, you don't, man. And some people will say you just need to meditate, which I like to meditate from time to time too, but there's other things that you can do to replace it, and you don't need the weed.
Yeah, like go help another alcoholic.
Yeah.
What a novel idea.
There's tons of stuff.
It says on Roman numeral 17 of the big book that the strenuous work one alcoholic to another is vital to bring about permanent recovery. So if I want permanent recovery, and I always want permanency, I'm just going to go help another alcoholic. And somehow, some way, no matter what state I'm in, helping another person helps me. And that's why even the first tradition, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. It's what we believe in together that helps me as an individual and what I believe personally. It's that commonality. It's page 17 of the big book. We have discovered a common solution on which we can absolutely agree and join in brotherly and harmonious action. And what is that agreement? 12 Steps of Recovery, the big book, the first 164 pages. Getting a loving God, getting a sponsor, going to meetings, helping another alcoholic, working, and then doing it over again. Joe and Charlie on their Joe and Charlie tapes are really excellent in terms of helping to find what the steps are. And steps 10, 11, and 12, they call them growth steps, not maintenance steps, but growth steps. They say, and I believe them, that they've never known a person who has actively done steps 10, 11, and 12 every day not to grow. And that's what I'm in this thing, because I couldn't get more high. I sat in the hotel room and I tried to be an almost one more time, an almost, because I came from nothing. I wasn't nothing. I was always going to be a nothing. So I settled on an almost, and I tried to recapture that feeling, and I couldn't. And the only way for me was the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I knew I didn't want to die. That's why I drank. I wanted to find that happy medium that wasn't terrible, wasn't good. It was okay, right where I was at. I found that neutrality where it didn't hurt being me. And I sat in that hotel room and I couldn't recapture it. And the only place for me to go was to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I went back to the rooms that day, through a divine set of miracles, my sponsor and I got down on our knees, did the third step prayer. That was April 25th, 1986. And trust me, Corey, I've never looked back. Never. I've never doubted anything. Over the years, I've had a continual spiritual awakening, but in that moment, I had a spiritual experience that revolutionized my life, and I knew I would never drink again.
Kind of had the same thing when I was in jail, and I actually prayed to God, let that be the last drink I ever take, and so far it has been. But it just went, and like I said, it just flips to I don't walk around mad or sad because I can't drink today. And if it pops in my head or someone says, would you want to drink today? I go, oh no, why would I want to do that? Like it flipped, from being I can't drink to why would I want to drink? Like that, that's a horrible idea. Why would I want to go cut my wiener off like that? No, thanks. Like I'm going to say no to both those things because it's not a good option for me.
It says, if tempted, we will recoil as if from a hot flame.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I'm very fortunate having gotten sober in Las Vegas. I was a room service waiter. And much of my story. I've never known a sober moment that didn't include alcohol. Never. For 10 years, 15 years almost in the restaurant business, serving drinks. And, to this day, Laura's, she actually sets things down at the end of second drink and says, I can't drink anymore. I think, what's the matter with you? People would, they would think, what was the matter with me? And I'd be on my 8th, 9th, my 10th drink. Yeah. She has 2 drinks and she says, I'm getting a little dizzy. I need to stop. I think, just when you're getting dizzy, I'm just getting wound up. I'm just getting ready to rock and roll. This is just, opening up the doors for me to get stupid,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been around it. And fortunately, and not everyone can, and I get that, and I'm okay with that. Just, I hope you're okay with me being around it, because we never recover from the alcoholism. I agree with you we're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. We recover from that obsession. We recover from that hopeless state of mind and body that allows us to make a rational decision in a non-emotive. So we don't react to the things we used to. We don't find it necessary. It's easier for me to walk through pain than it is for me to avoid pain. Because avoidance will lead to more pain, and more pain will increase my need to medicate. And my favorite medication is Johnny Walker Black.
Yeah, and I preach about reacting a lot too, and how you respond versus react. Because and man, it's a lifelong journey. It's going to be a lifelong learning experience for me, because there's some things that will just catch you off guard, and man, you just want to fire, especially when you're driving. They call it giving people the Corey now, is when giving people the finger. If that lets you know anything, but I try to, like, hey, maybe that person's having a bad day too, like just don't react so much, and you will save yourself the embarrassment. Man, I've saved myself so much embarrassment that normally probably would have made me go drink, because I would have said something so wrong or falsely accused somebody of something they didn't do. It just calm down. And there was a guy in here, I don't know, last month, and he was like, Corey, he came in to talk to me, and then he left, and he comes back in. He's like, Corey, somebody stole my phone out of my car. And I was like, well, are you sure? I mean, we don't really have a lot of people in our parking lot just wandering through, looking through people's cars, and you're only in here for like 5 minutes. And I was like, well, let me check the camera, because our camera points out. And I was like, well, there was a car that kind of came by, but I don't think they went in your car to steal your phone. He's like, it was just sitting right there. Now it's gone. Somebody stole my phone. Just freaking out, And I was like, well, let's just calm down. I was like, you sure it's not in your car? Oh, positive. I left it right in the center. I'm like, are you sure it didn't like fall into your seat or something? Oh, I wouldn't have put it there. It was right in the center. So we go out to his car. He opens his door. He's like, right here's where I put it. And I was like, okay. And I look under his seat, and it's not there. And I'm like, all right. And he goes to close the door, and I look in the door, and there's that little cubby area in the door, and I see his phone. As he closes the door, I'm like, well, hold on, open your door back up. He's like, what? And I was like, what is that there? And he's like, well, that's my phone. Oh my God, I thought some, but he just went into this panic mode and just assumed that all these bad things were happening to him, when no, that's right, the dog, I had to take this dog over to this lady, and the dog was getting my phone, so I remember putting it in there. Oh, okay, I'm so dumb. I'm like, you're not dumb, but you like almost caused yourself a moment that could have led you to go relapse.
Yeah.
And just, even if somebody did steal your phone, God wanted you to have a new one then.
So here I am. I'm like 2.5 years sober. And when I met Laura, we've been married over 35 years now. When I met Laura, I stopped dating. I took Laura out once. And I thought, oh my God, I have to marry this girl. So the next day I woke up, and I was dating one of my cocktail waitresses who was also a lingerie model. So she was a tall drink of water. And I was really thirsty at the time. But I took Laura out, and I thought, this is the girl I have to marry. And so I went and I told this girl the next day. So it'll give you an idea of how crazy I was for Laura from like Jump Street. And so Laura was over at my house on a Saturday morning, and we were leaving, and I locked my keys in my car. And instead of getting upset, I was cool, I was calm, I was collective. I figured out how I was gonna, and Laura came from madness. Her dad was a drug addict, insane person who just would blow up at the smallest provocation. So she watched me for about a half hour, just figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to? And eventually I got the door open and I got my keys out. She fell in love with me in that moment. In that moment of calmness, of collecting myself, of being cool when I could have been angry. She'll say to this day, that's when she fell in love with me, because I represented the person that she always wanted to be with. And we were 15 years apart then and now. And And so there's a lot to be said for being cool and for being composed and for living that serene life that only our higher power can bring us. So whether it's you don't have to be embarrassed when you find your phone, or you end up with a girl who 36 years later you're still in love with, it just works.
Mm-hmm. And you feel better, and you felt like you accomplished something by actually getting your keys. And I'm sure you felt good, but it would have been easy for you to blow up. Oh, I can't believe I did this. And what am I going to do now? And you just have to just take a deep breath. Yeah. This is what's happening.
So it pays, bro. It pays.
It really does. And
whether it pays in a 36-year relationship, and to this day, Laura and I were still dating, and we're going to go to Florida for 7 days and just lay in the sun and just enjoy life and enjoy our marriage and enjoy our friendship. And that happened over time, obviously. Anything that I can do, because I'm usually later on in the day when I do my 10-step, when I take that final inventory at the end of the day, other than a spot check, there's nothing worse than looking at life and thinking, I had an opportunity to be a better version of me, and I missed that opportunity because I became more important than whatever the circumstance or opportunity was. And there are opportunities. There are opportunities in the big book. It says for God to demonstrate his omnipotence in our life. And either our higher power is our higher power. And I'm not perfect with this. I've wanted to murder people in the line at Food for Less as much as the next person. But I don't do anything. I try not to do anything that I have to go back and I say I'm sorry to say I'm sorry to. And whether I know them or not, God knows me and I know how I ought to be. And when we get to the end of the day and said, there was an opportunity for me to be stupid, and I decided to trust instead of being, engaged in something I can't control. Can I control this? Can I control it? Where's that divided line? And obviously to get upset over things you can't control is foolishness. And to get upset over things that you can control is just stupid.
Yeah, that was a lesson that I had learned the hard way in treatment the last time. I was pretty much court ordered to go there. I couldn't leave. And that was my big thing, man. That's why I went to so many treatment centers, is I would be there a week and I would have of course, I'm brilliant, I'm just going to smoke weed moments. Or, I would be like, I just need to get a job. I just need to make some money. If I had money to pay my bills, I wouldn't drink. Okay, no, I've had people tell me that didn't work, and of course it didn't. But I thought I'd figure it out every time. Well, I was court ordered for 90 days, so I couldn't just leave. And there was this guy who I hated, and I was in a different treatment center with him, and he annoyed. I just tried to stay away from him. Well, this one, it wasn't as easy to stay away from him, and he would get into the groups, and we call them hijacker, because there was 40 people in a group, and the group's an hour and a half. Everybody has to share. Well, do the math on that. You don't really have a long time, but he would take up 20, 30 minutes. Not everybody would even get to share how they felt that day, because he was hijacking the group, talking about how he's got a grandkid now and how he's going to never use, and just on and on and on. We'd go outside to smoke a cigarette, and he's out there talking about, when I get back to Battle Creek, I'm going to be the biggest meth dealer in Battle Creek because I'm going to do this and that. And we're like, dude. And I hated every minute of him. Everything about him. Hated his face, hated his hair, hated his jacket, hated everything about him. And I went to my counselor lady and was like, you need to switch me groups. And she's like, no. And so I was like, yes, you need to. Normally, that's where I would have bounced. All right, I'm out. That would have been my excuse. Don't need a big one. Couldn't find my lighter. Couldn't find a lighter. I'm out. I gotta go. And so I went to this other guy, and I was like, look, Steven, he was really, really good at what he did. And I was like, Steven, this guy, I can't be in a group with him. Could you please explain to homegirl here that I need to get switched out of that group? And he's like, well, they're not going to do that, but you're getting worked up over things that you don't have control over. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, when he goes on his little tangents, what's your job? I was like, what do you mean what's my job? He's like, well, what are you supposed to be doing? Well, I'm supposed to be paying attention. He's like, okay, but you're not vibing with this guy and what he's saying. I was like, no, absolutely not. He's like, okay, well, what can you control? And I was like, oh, puffy about it. Look, well, I can go take a shit. You can. I take a nap. You can. I was like, I can color. You can. I can write my mom a letter. He's like, you can. Those are things you can control. He's like, it's the group leader's job. It's her job. She's actually getting paid. It's her job to tell him to shut up and to move on. You get 2 minutes. Let's go. Like, it's her job. That's not your job, Corey. You're not here leading group. I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And he's like, if you want after group, if you would like to go to say something to the instructor, like, hey, can you please move on from that guy or maybe have him go last? You could do that. Will she do that? I don't know. That's up to her. But at least those are things that you can do. You have control over that. You have no control over what comes out of his mouth. You could go punch him in the face, but then we're going to call the cops and you're going to go to jail. And I don't think you want that. He's like, but those are options. Those are what you can do. Those are things that you have. And I started thinking about it like that, and it flipped. It changed. And he came up to me, this guy that I hated, and he was like, you got a problem with me? Because after 2 or 3 days of me not reacting, it was bugging him. Like, he wanted that reaction out of me. And he was like, you want to go outside and fight? And I was like, for what? And then my friend was in there, and he, big guy, became friends or whatever. But he's like, I'll go outside with you, Billy. And he's like, no, I don't want to go outside with you, Ricky.
Not you.
He's a big old dude. He's like, no. I was like, no, I'm not going outside with you, man. It's not about that. I was like, but if you go on your little tangent again, I'm going to leave the group. I'm just letting you know. You know, like that's what I have control over. But it's just things like that you learn along the way that you start putting into play, and it just helps and saves you embarrassment. It saves you from getting worked up over something that you have no control over. Who's going to win the presidency? I don't know.
And that's real good that counselor said that to you, because early on in Vegas, they told me it's not what they say, it's not what they do, it's how you react.
Yeah.
You don't control what they say, you don't control what you do, but you control your reaction. And that's been your biggest problem. You reacted to everything.
Yep.
And you throw it all in one basket, and you have one reaction to what you think is one thing, but it's not just one thing, it's a number of things, but you decided it needed to be one thing so you could drink over everything.
Yeah.
And boy, that was, I'm so glad that I got sober in Las Vegas. Number one, Las Vegas, the bottom was severe. There's no purgatory. There's no holding pattern. You're either you don't have a problem or you have a severe problem. Alcoholism, drug addiction, pornography, gambling, overeating, because all the great buffets they've got, and you name it, there's not an addiction, either substance or behavioral, that does not try to attract you, in Vegas and lights. And everything is good. Everything is 24 hours a day. Everything, you never have to wonder, gosh, I can't wait for this liquor store to get open, or I can't wait to go meet my drug dealer. I can't go, you want to go see a stripper at 6 a.m., go see a stripper at 6 a.m. There's a club open. You want to gamble your paycheck at, 9 o'clock in the morning. There's a place to do that. You want to scotch on the rocks, at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., knock yourself out. You want to meet your drug dealer at the craps table, you can get a dose of cocaine. I mean, it didn't matter. You want a breakfast buffet, you want a lunch buffet, you want a dinner buffet, you want to throw up in between. What do you want? It's there. And so even though my addiction started in California, where it really got the wheels rolling, first place I drank, I'd lived in California at the time longer than I'd lived anywhere. But moving to Las Vegas, I tell people it turned a fender bender into a head-on collision. And I'm grateful to Las Vegas, because I think a person like me needed Las Vegas to crash harder than I would have had I not been in Las Vegas. And because I had been drinking, by the time I got to Las Vegas in 1980, I started where, in Japan, they have a phrase, first a man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. And I think, Las Vegas just accelerated my timeline and the depth of my addiction better than any place could have. I say better, but faster than any place. And so my need for recovery came. And instead of dying, I believe, for me, instead of dying a slow, painful death that addiction can facilitate, I hit a bottom I would not have hit anywhere else. Fortunately, in Las Vegas, AA is so strong. 12-step recovery is as good and as foundational as any place I've ever visited across the country. And not only was my addiction waiting for me before I arrived, but AA was waiting for me. It was everything I needed when I needed it to be. And the strength and the durability and the no-nonsense approach to recovery was something that someone as severely as addicted as I was needed at the time. And I'm forever grateful for Las Vegas for its bottom that only Las Vegas could provide, and the recovery that was waiting for me when I finally said enough is enough.
And you live in Utah now, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I live in Salt Lake City.
You still got Rufus?
Very active.
Still have Rufus?
No, thank you for asking.
Oh.
No, Rufus died a couple years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
We miss Rufus. We tried to get another dog, and that didn't go too well. Fortunately, we were able to give the dog away and give him a good home, and I will be dogless. And fortunately, I just don't have time, unfortunately, to give the dog the attention. Laura works a lot and allows me to do what I do. And so I'm super active in 12-step recovery and my traveling and my speaking and my podcast. And I'll be in Idaho in February. I'm back in California. I just was in California Treatment Center Recovery, Alano Club, and I'm speaking 3 times. I'm secretarying a Saturday night meeting or chairing a Saturday night meeting, speaker meeting, and just really getting some good recovery routes of service, and that's what's really great, being sober as long as I've been sober has really opened a lot of doors for me that have been open just because they can't believe that a guy as sober as long as me, is still wanting, to serve and guys like you and me, Corey, we don't know how not to serve.
Exactly.
You gotta say we don't want you, and then I'll say, really? Come on,
I'll be there anyway. I'll be there. Might as well use me.
That's right. I'm here. You might not like my experience, Structon, but I got a lot of it.
It's gonna reach one person, man. There's one guy out there.
You know what? Gosh, you've said that more than once, and. There was a treatment center, then I've been the alumni speaker there a couple times, and I went back when I was speaking in California just recently. I called up this treatment center and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. And Daniel, the CEO of this treatment center, is really nice to me. Hey, anytime you're in town, come and you can get in front of our male and female population. So this one particular time I was there, because again, the rule of thirds, you never know who you're going to touch. So I'm speaking. I spoke at this treatment center on Friday in classroom setting. So Saturday, I'm the alumni speaker, speaking to everyone who's graduated from the program on a Saturday afternoon. And I got there early just to get a feel for lay of the land, and the landscape. And I saw this girl changing trash cans, and that was her chore that morning at the treatment center. And I said, hey, I remember you from yesterday. And she said, yeah, She said, this is a 90-day program. And I was on day 60 or whatever it was. She said, and I was going to leave yesterday. Mind you, I'm talking to 60 women, having the Ask It basket, just answering questions on the fly. And she said, I was going to leave yesterday, but I decided to stay the full 90 days. Would you like to meet my husband and my children? And man, she was my trip. Corey, everything, every other reason, I knew why it was there. I wasn't there for the 120 people I would see on Friday. I wasn't there for the 250 I would talk to on Saturday. I was there for that one person. And if God would have taken me home in that moment, my life would have been complete. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when that one person is affected, as you and I were affected, when we knew we never had to return to that nonsense again, we were changed, man. And when we can say something or do something or be an example of what recovery is to make a person, to help facilitate a person staying when they wanted to leave, dude, that's the greatest feeling. It's just like, take me home now, God, because it's not going to get any better than this.
It's the
And that's what we
feeling-
live for, man.
and like I said, we could bottle it up, but we can't. And just when you see it flip in people, when you see them make the changes, and it's so rewarding. It's beyond money. It's beyond anything, and it's a soul fulfilling thing that we do, you know, and we want more of it, you know. And some people are like, you're addicted to recovery. I'm like, okay, it's working out pretty good for me, you know. Like I don't know. I look back now and I go, which of course I know why. It's because God was trying to show me this is what you need to do. But if I would have just listened before, you know, like, why did I fight it so hard, man? Alcohol didn't make me run faster. It didn't make me better on the radio. It didn't do anything good in my life. Why did I fight it so hard? You know, and that's the addiction part of it. And that's how I kind of explain it to people too. And that's a good way for it to make sense to them, you know. And my sister is or isn't going through a thing. She has to figure it out on her own. You know, my mom's like, oh, talk to her. Well, she doesn't want to hear it. You know, like, if you don't have a problem, you don't have a problem, right?
Right.
But my phone's here. She can call me whenever she wants, you know, and as long as she doesn't ask me for money for my nephew's baseball team, I'm good. I was like, if you want to ask people for money, you can come work for my nonprofit, but you got to be sober, you know, like, you got to be in recovery. And she's like, oh, well, yeah. But my point is, though, to try to talk to somebody who doesn't want to hear it is kind of like, okay. But to be around, to be available for when they do need it, that's what we can do. You know, there are some people, we're just stage 2 on their journey and they got 10 more to go. They'll remember it just like I did, just like you did. You know, we might have not just fell right into it and I get it, but it takes this guy, that guy, this woman, that person, this preacher, that other guy. You just take it all. And then finally, when you can just put it on the table and just scoop it all up to you and go, let's just take all this in and let's start trying this way. And when it flips for you, when it becomes, why would I drink today? That's a horrible idea. And you start patting yourself on the back. There was a guy in an AA meeting that was like, I'm tired of people patting themselves on the back for stuff they should be doing anyway. And I raised my hand and said, I got to, man, because the old me wouldn't have done that. The old me would have not seen those red flags, started dating this person, started doing that. I would have been the old me. I pat myself on the back because I caught myself and I am changing. You know, and when I see those changes in myself, hell yeah, I'm going to pat myself on the back. Just because you think I should be doing it anyway, that's your opinion, you know, and I have nothing I can do about that. But for me, I'm going to pat myself on the back.
You know, and that's one of the reasons that I call myself a recovered alcoholic. And that's mainly because I read the book, right? I've read the foreword to the first edition, and it tells me I've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to show others how we have recovered is precisely why we wrote this book. Then it goes on to say, we hope this book is so convincing that no further authentication is necessary. So, you know, what else do you have to do? But it's interesting, because I'm going to digress a little bit to back what you said in terms of being a person of recovery. And there was a person who I remember them from the podium early on in my journey. And they said their middle name was More, M-O-R-E. My middle name is More, blah, blah, blah. And they said, when I was out there ripping and running, when I was out there drinking and using and horn around and all the things that we do to make our feel good, he said it was more of everything else. It was more drugs. It was more alcohol. It was more sex. It was more gambling. It was more this, more that, more. He said, I came to believe that I'm a person of more. I'm a person of excess. So now my more is still more, It's what the more is that's different. I didn't have to change the more because that's dialed into my personality type. I'm a person who appreciates excessiveness, and more is my middle name. So I adopted that. So my middle name is More, and it's more recovery, more big book, more 12-step, more service, more serving, more God, more everything that really makes my feel good. I do everything to excess. I still do everything alcoholically. It's what I do alcoholically. See, I can be treated or I can be untreated. And when I was untreated, you best believe I did everything alcoholically. Well, I still do, but I just do everything alcoholically as a treated alcoholic. And I make no apologies for being a recovered alcoholic. I had to make apologies left and right for being an untreated alcoholic.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, who's counting? Well, I'm freaking counting. I counted every day when I was out there in remorse. How can I do this one more time? How can I disappoint my daughter? I was critical of me minute by minute sometimes. I'm taking credit on behalf of God for every day I'm sober. So people don't want to count. I'm a counter. I counted everything when I was out there. Trust me, I'm counting everything in here because every day is a gift. And why wouldn't you count a gift? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I am a logical person. I like to figure it out. I like to understand everything that's happened to me, because I want to articulate what's happened. I'm not satisfied with just having dots on a page. I want the dots to be sorted. I want the dots to, when you connect all those dots, I want it to show a picture of recovery. And then I want it to color in, because it's that color. It says, outsiders are often amazed when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic situation. It says, but why shouldn't we laugh? For we have recovered and been given the ability to help others. And if people don't see me as happy, joyous, and free, if they don't see you and the people who work in your association as really being excited, why would they want it? I mean, every now and then we were able to achieve mediocrity when we were out there. But no, we've chosen a way where we're happy, we're joyous, and we're free. We insist on enjoying life, the big book says. Mm-hmm. And if the big book says it, you can trust I'm all in. I'm in the deep end of the pool, swimming as fast as I can.
The part about having fun is something that we really embrace here. And it goes back to when I was working at a treatment center. Actually, it goes back to when I was in a treatment center. I was one of the mental facilities. I was in mental behavioral health, whatever you want to call it. They were like, all right, let's play games. And I'm like, I don't play games. I was like, no, a game I like is Pictionary. And the lady's like, okay, well, I'll write safe words on here. And I'm like, we don't want no safe words, But so she did like ice cream cone and stuff like that. But we did it. It was fun. Well, I started working at this treatment center, and I was like, hey, you guys, like, we did it one week because like these cooking shows were big. And I was like, hey, there's a whole kitchen downstairs with the food that you guys can make. Like, who's in? Who wants to do a little cook off? I'll give you the ingredients. You guys got to whip something up. And they had a blast. And then I decided, well, let's do Pictionary, and it was X-rated Pictionary pretty much. I got guys drawing wieners on the board and stuff, but they laugh so hard. And I heard it so many times of like, oh my God, I don't remember last time I laughed so hard sober. And I'd have to remind them, when's the last time you laughed so hard when you were messed up?
Yeah.
And then thought about it, and they're like, yeah, I don't think it's been a long time since I've laughed, and I'm like, well, and you are sober and you can laugh and we can have fun. And still to this day, I'll have people come up to me and they're like, hey, remember me? This happened on Sunday. And the guy's face looked very familiar. And I was like, yeah, I remember you. And he was like, yeah, I was in, Dukoski when you worked there. We played Pictionary. He was like, man, I laughed my ass. I was telling her about it. He was with his girlfriend, he's like, I was telling her about it, and man, she didn't quite put it together, but you had to be there, I guess, And I'm like, yeah, because we were doing some fun stuff. And
Yeah.
it was just out of the box. And normally, like when the new guys would come in and they're like, all right, it's Friday. Corey's here doing Pictionary. Yeah. And the new guy would be like playing Pictionary. And they're like, yeah, you got to come, man. It's so much fun. And new guy would be like, okay. And then he'd go in there and he'd be laughing right along with it. And, you know, like, but it's just little things like that, little moments that you can bring to the table. And unfortunately, they don't do that stuff now there. And I guess after I left, then another guy tried it and they're like, yeah, you can't be doing Pictionary, man. Like, probably shouldn't let Corey do that. You know, some of that stuff's inappropriate, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. It's funny though. And I don't know what someone's going to draw. You know, like one time I put therapist on there and I thought that was a pretty safe word. Well, he draws like this person getting bent over a desk and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what do you do with your therapist here? And he's like, oh, I thought it was the rapist. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, that's a simple mistake. I mean, I guess if you just space it out, you know, that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh. Like, but it was funny and we're all dying. And then what did I put something up there. I don't even remember, but it was so much fun and people would interpret different words. And then so we had a little thing where they would call me in the hallway if they didn't know what it was, you know, and I'm like, okay, this is what it is, you know, and I don't know, but it was just a good time. And you create that fun atmosphere to get people to laugh. And we do an event every month here. We go to, which really wasn't that fun. I mean, it was fun. We went to a Tigers game. They're just not very good. I mean, they're not the White Sox. So, hey, that's good.
Yeah, thank goodness they're not the Guardian.
Yeah.
They won 34 games this year or something crazy.
Gosh, I mean, they're bad. Like, I kind of want to get some autographs from that team because I think it could be worth something. You know, like they could
That's that eventually.
lose some more games and maybe get the record. I don't know if that's even possible, but I know they're a horrible team. But we went to a Lions game. We can't get tickets to the Lions because everybody loves them.
They're supposed to be one of the number one teams to give along with San Francisco, according to PTI, along with San Francisco to give the Chiefs a run for their money.
Yeah,
and the Ravens.
Yeah, it'll be good. But 2 years ago, they were just on the come up. I think they just missed the playoffs by one game, but they gave us some great seats. The Lions did, you know, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. And then since they didn't give us tickets last year, they're like, we're sold out. We have no tickets to give you, but we'll give you an autographed football. And we auctioned it off at one of our speaking events that we hold once a quarter. Neat. And so, you know, it did help raise some money for us, and that was good, you know, because we can still keep helping people. And it's just those things that we can show people like, hey, this is what we do and this is what we did. And cooking classes. We did a fishing event because in Michigan, twice a year, they do free fishing day where you don't need a license. So we got 7 sober living homes within our area here. So we're like, hey, guys, let's go. We got some poles and took people fishing, and then it rained, of course. But
you've touched on something really important because on page 17, and I know I alluded to it early on in our conversation, on There's a Solution, it says there's a fellowship, camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Says even our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our own individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which now binds us. And there's a unity there. And even the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous says Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that we might solve our common problem and to help others to recover from alcoholism. I tell people often, and maybe this was true of you, and I know certain so many people like us. The fellowship held me long enough for me to admit I was alcoholic, and once I admitted I was alcoholic, then the 12 steps of recovery became necessary. But the fellowship, before I was ready to admit to my innermost self that I was alcoholic, I could admit out loud because I wanted to be like you. But that true surrender, that true submission of recognizing who I was, what I did, and the depths that I had gone, it was the fellowship that kept me there long enough for the roots of recovery to take hold, that I became unmovable. And to this day, I love the fellowship. Fellowship is not recovery any more than recovery is fellowship. It takes both. But I think before recovery can take root, fellowship needs to hold us in one place long enough for those roots to take place. Because even if I took a patch of grass or anything, if I tried to replant a small house plant every single day, it would never take root. It would then eventually die. But if I leave it there long enough and roots begin to develop, there'll come a time where you can't move that plant anymore. You've got to dig it out. You've got to really, because the roots become so viable and so strong. And that's, I think, what the fellowship does for us. And you have probably found that true in your recovery journey as well. The fellowship is something that everyone ought to experience.
It's part of the people, places, things, man.
Yeah.
Like when people first told me about the people, places, and things, I was like, well, I'm not hanging out with anybody who's drinking. I'm not going to the bars. Well, you need to go to those places. You need to find those people. You can't just sit on your couch and wait for Mr. Opportunity to come knocking, because that's not going to happen. The more you put yourself out there with different people, with good people who are doing good things, you're going to find opportunities. It's the numbers game almost, like people will ask you, oh, do you need help? Or would you like to do this? Or you'll be surprised by the opportunities that come along and the good people that you'll meet. And those are the people that you want to be around, not saying that everybody who's using is bad. They're just stuck in a place that if you're in early recovery, you shouldn't be associated with those people, because you're still very vulnerable. And it's very simple. Like I was saying the other day, we just need a little sliver of an excuse. We don't need a big one. I said it earlier, just, lose my lighter and I'm out, like, let's go. I'm having a bad day. Turn my power off and I'll sit there and that's okay. I figured it was going to get cut off. That sucks. Did you steal my lighter? Let's go fight. It's the little things that we can't handle. But when we start to learn and we start to not react, it does become easier. And the people that I get to meet along the way, like you, I was excited. I've been wanting to do a podcast with you for a while. It's been so long. It seems like 100 years. Time just goes by so much slower. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's faster at the same time. So it seems like we talked years and years and years ago. And it's been a couple years, but I follow you on Instagram and Facebook and all that. And weren't you beefing with a guy, recoveryguy.com or something? Because your website's recoveryguy.org, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then another guy came out and he had recoveryguy.com or something.
Something like that.
I mean, this was a while ago too. This was like 50 years ago. And I was like, oh man. And then I remember one time you reached out to me and you asked me about something about a vape or something, or about something that people were doing. And you were like, oh man, I'm not keen on what's going on. And I can't remember the details of it, but those are times where I wanted to reach out. I don't remember what was going on. Maybe we were going to a Lions game or something, but like to actually have the time. And I appreciate you taking the time today, to sit down and chat with me, and I just love these just chatting about recovery. Like I love talking about it. It's something that just gets in my soul and it just makes me feel good. And to see a smiling face, someone who's doing great, someone who's done great. And I can look up to you and go, look, like life doesn't have to end. It's just going to keep getting better. And I was saying about my employee earlier about he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to become. I kind of feel like that is where I'm at in my journey too. People will be like, oh, Corey, you guys are really blowing up. You did this and oh man, you're doing great. Like, man, I'm just scratching the surface. I want to make a movie. I want to write a book. I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to make a short film this fall. I got to wait for the trees to change. Nice, beautiful orange trees in Michigan. Love it. But to make my short film, because to make a normal, long, full-length film, I don't know how to do that. But I was like, I'll just start with a short film. If I can do that good, then I'll move on. But, until I can make a good short film, why would I want to go take on this task that's overwhelming? Start baby step it. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to make a movie, but it doesn't mean I can't.
One of the things that I'm so grateful for, in terms of time is I got to the rooms of AA when I was 32 and I'm 70 now. And I've lived 38 years in recovery. And I'm so fortunate that before health problems crept in, got worse, I was able to find the rooms of recovery, or the rooms of recovery found me. But I've been able to reinvent myself and reclaim everything that I ever lost. Sometimes I feel like Job, I lost everything. And yet today, the things that I have are more than I ever imagined, and I just want to do everything I can to encourage everyone to just count every day as a blessing. I've lived 8 years longer than my dad, and my dad had 7 years of sobriety when he died, and I have 38 years, and it's amazing what happens when we surrender, like you surrendered, and the people that that you come in contact with, they've surrendered. Because without surrender, we're going to fight a battle we can't win. And addiction is one of those battles. In order for the 12 steps of recovery to work, I have to surrender. I have to admit that I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable. And, the insanity of my addiction doesn't rear its ugly head until I get sober. It's not like it happens when I'm drinking. It happens when I'm sober. And as our friend Bob D says, being sober is like doing time. We have to get onto the steps. We have to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. We have to do that inventory. We have to admit. We have to be ready for God to remove the defects of character. Then we have to humbly ask him to remove the shortcomings. And then we have to be willing to make amends to people that we harmed along the way. And then we need to live that journey out one day at a time for the rest of our life. And for me, and for guys like you, there is no other way for us. We've tried the other ways. If the other ways worked, they were a lot easier than this, we'd have done them.
Yeah.
And yet it took everything that I lost to gain everything that I have. Yeah. And we're fortunate, because how many men and women have died along the way? How many statistics are out there? I'm saddened oftentimes when I go into the rooms and that I'm the exception, not the rule. And rarely do I see a person in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, rarely, that is sober 10, 12, 15 years. You just don't see it, and if I ever leave, I will be not grateful for the persons who were there when I arrived, and to show them how grateful I am is one of the reasons that I stay. I can never leave, and I could not be happier. To see that newcomer come in wondering, if they can ever get their wife back, if they can ever get their life back, if their mom and dad or brother and sister, will ever forgive them, if they ever think they're going to be employable again. You remember what it was like. Mm-hmm. They would say to me, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and the lights are out. Nobody else is there. You know what the truth is about you. And the truth for men like you and me was not too promising. We pretended it was. Mm-hmm. When we were drunk, we were high, we played the game. But we were lonely. We were lost. And we were more lost. We were afraid to admit how lost we really were, because then no one would like us. And then we come into the rooms of recovery and we run into a group of people who, the more they know, the more they like. And I don't understand it to this day why they liked me, why they asked me to come back, but they did. And so I did, because I had nowhere else to go and they wanted me. Where was I going to go? Yeah. I'm glad I stayed, and to see that light go on to see that person who you see for a second time, then a third time, then a fourth time. And next thing you know, they're working, in recovery and treatment, trying to do whatever they can. They're sponsoring someone. They're trying to show them a version of what you showed them. And, when my sponsor of 33 years passed away of cancer 5 years ago, I said, Jack, what do I tell him? What do I say? And in his cancer-filled voice, he said, Bob, tell him it works. So that's the journey that guys like you and me are on. Yeah. It just works.
It's a great journey, man. And I'm glad that you came back, and I'm glad that you're here. And I look up to you, man. I really do. And I think you're doing great things, and love seeing the stuff that you post. You're always posting beautiful pictures of you and your wife in a beautiful location. And I'm like, that dude's living it, man. Like one day I'm gonna be that guy, And yeah, so I do look up to you, and I follow you still. So even if I don't hit you up or write you all the time, just know when you post a picture, Corey's gonna see that. He's gonna like that one, But no, I love it. I love what you're doing, and like I said, I look up to you, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. We'll have to make it maybe not 2 years before we have you on again.
Yeah. Well, I would love the opportunity to get, you and your wife and Michelle and me, and we can do that Ask It Basket.
That'd be awesome.
Approach. We would love to do that. And just talk about questions that we get in treatment centers, because they're good questions, man.
Yeah.
I have a basket full of questions that people ask me all the time, newcomers who are freshly new, wonder if they can do it. You do the same. Mm-hmm. And anytime you want me to come out, I will come out and I will speak. I'll spend a weekend talking to anyone you put me in front of.
Okay.
I would love to do that.
All right. We'll wait for all the vacationers to leave Traverse City and have you out.
Yeah, I've been to Traverse City, been to Traverse Mountain on a trip. Did I ever tell you I was born in Highland Park?
No.
Yeah. I have family in Livonia and Detroit, and my
I think
uncle
you did
was,
tell me that.
Yeah. I was born in Highland Park, Detroit Osteopathy Hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, that closed down for good reason.
No, all right.
Yeah, I'm a Michigander.
Well, good. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
That's why we bond so well.
There you go. We got the two, man. Yeah. I was, when I was taken home from the hospital, wasn't too far from Eminem, before Eminem, before Marshall existed.
You paved the way for him.
Yeah, that's me, another white guy.
Oh, that's true. But all right, Robert, I appreciate you, man, and I'll be in touch and see if we can get you here, man. Do some stuff and have some fun here and get you back to your home state.
Yeah, that'll be great, man. I'll spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like I say, just wind me up and put me in front of people at a treatment center. If you're having an event, just let me know, man. I'll show up.
Okay, and then we'll do that Ask It Basket. I'll get Marnie and you get Michelle, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just let me have a time, and I'll get it arranged according to all four of our schedules, and we'll just make it work.
All right, sounds good, Robert. Thanks again for joining me, and you have a blessed day.
All right, man. Good to talk to you, Corey. God bless you as well, and God bless your journey.
Thanks for listening to the 217 Recovery Podcast. Listen to over 900 episodes on the 217 Recovery app. That's free in your app store or online at 217recovery.com.